As I said in my previous video, I've been a fan of Suda51 ever since I learned about Killer 7, probably a couple years after it came out, and since then, I've enjoyed looking into Suda's madness. From playing the games to forum posts with theories, explanations, or summaries, since not all of his games are translated. His games can be fascinating, unique, macabre, entertaining, weird, weirdly personal, and might require a second or third playthrough to get a good grasp on what's going on. There's always more to dive into when it comes to Suda51, so let's find out what is the Kill the Past series. Just to let you guys know, I will be going into spoilers for most of these games, and also they do have some disturbing content that will be mentioned in this video, so be aware in case you're sensitive to those types of things. Kill the Past is the main theme for a number of video games directed by Suda51. That theme is defined by a protagonist that must destroy relics of a past they've repressed in some way, usually caused when something from the past returns to disrupt their life until they acknowledge and confront it to truly kill it and move on. Kill the Past as a series has similar themes across its games apart from just its main theme, while also featuring a number of recurring trademarks, such as severed heads, life and death, the moon, assassins, and the medium of television or technology in general. As I've said in my previous video, the Kill the Past series is classified as a thematic series, which means each game can more or less be enjoyed as a standalone title. The main characters and the stories told are changed from game to game, so they don't exactly overlap. Some of Suda's games within the Kill the Past series have some sort of continuity between them, but it's never the focus of the stories. Before we actually get into the story of these games and their themes, let's take a look at the man behind the series. Goichi Suda, or more commonly known as Suda51, began his career with video games around 1993. Before that, he worked as a funeral director, mostly working in flower arrangement. Suda at some point saw and responded to an ad for a position at Human Entertainment. Then famous for the Fire Pro Wrestling series, Suda applied as a game designer. He was convinced that his knowledge and passion of wrestling would guarantee him the job. And he was right. The studio hired Suda to be a scenario writer, largely because they needed more designers with wrestling knowledge. Suda wrote scenarios for both Super Fire Pro Wrestling 3, Final Bout, and Super Fire Pro Wrestling Special. Thanks to the quality of his work and the increased attention from the shocking ending of SFP Special, Suda was given the role of director for 3 games: Twilight Syndrome Investigation, Twilight Syndrome Search, and the sort of sequel to that, Moonlight Syndrome. Shortly before Human Entertainment closed its doors, Suda left the company and founded Grasshopper Manufacturer, where he created the games associated with Kill the Past. But there's actually one game from Human Entertainment that some consider to be part of the Kill the Past series. In fact, it was his last game from Human Entertainment, Moonlight Syndrome. Released in Japan on October 9th, 1997, Moonlight Syndrome is a psychological horror adventure game that follows 2 main characters, Ryo-Kazan and Mika Kishi. The game kicks off more or less when Kyoko-Kazan, brother to Ryo-Kazan, is killed in an accident. Ryo runs into Sumio Toba, known player and boyfriend of Kyoko, at a party in a club. Ryo meets a girl named Yayoi at the party, who lures him into the back room of the club, where once again he encounters Sumio. Sumio confronts Ryo about his incestuous relationship with his late sister and torments him, even going so far as to present Ryo with the severed head of Kyoko in a bag. Sumio heads back to the party as Ryo's in shock and still being tormented about his choices by Yayoi. Back at the party, Sumio is hitting on girls when he's confronted by a girl who he had previously slept with. Angry at Sumio for getting her pregnant and not taking responsibility, she lights both herself and Sumio on fire. The next day, Mika goes to school, chats with friends, and has a run-in with a silver-haired boy named Mitra. At some point in the story, Mika gets kidnapped, and Mitra appears before Ryo, telling him that Mika's life is in danger, and he offers him a contract. He will ensure Mika's safety and extend her life, but Ryo may never make physical contact with her. Ryo accepts the contract, since Mika's the only other person who he's close to, and she looks kind of similar to his dead sister. Mika goes on to investigate the incidents around the town, which she determines is caused by psychic phenomena. She is joined by her friends as they encounter Mithra, and the incidents start to escalate violently. Mika goes to a party with friends and falls asleep. When she wakes up, she's on a train where she runs into Ryo and Mithra. Ryo is unable to awaken, as Mithra has taken his consciousness. Mika trades her consciousness for Ryo's. Now awake, he sees Mika in a comatose state and tries to awaken her. And in a very uncomfortable scene, ends up having sex with her while she's still in her comatose state. She disappears from the world as Ryo had violated the contract. This leaves Ryo and a few others to search for Mika and the cause of the incidents. Following the signs of Mika's presence, they find the culprit behind them to be Mithra. He reveals to Ryo that he is a supernatural being that has been forming contracts with people, thus causing the incidents, including his sister's death. Sumio had actually made a contract with Mithra to kill Kyoko because he was jealous of her and Ryo's relationship. Ryo kills Mithra, and in doing so kills Mika completely because her life was directly connected to Mithra's due to the contract. The game ends here, and in the credits we see Ryo running through a valley. At the end he sees Mika, and the two of them embrace. After that, there's a scene where we're in Ryo's room, and Rumi Toba, the sister of Sumio Toba, enters the room shocked by what she sees. Ryo is staring at a TV, clutching the paper bag with the severed head of his sister, and Mika trapped in a TV screen. While Moonlight Syndrome doesn't exactly have the same themes as other Kill the Past games, it's still important because a lot of the imagery and their significance comes from this game. Like the moon, which reflects a character's sanity, or can cause them to become insane. There's the severed heads, spiritual or supernatural elements, and televisions. It doesn't have a character that must face their past in order to move towards the future. In fact, many of the problems of the characters are caused in the near immediate past, and the ones who survive explicitly don't gain the strength needed to move on from the incident, as we'll see with our next game, The Silver Case. Released in Japan on October 7th, 1999, and re-released worldwide as a remaster in 2016, The Silver Case is Grasshopper Manufacturer's first game. This time focusing on a larger setting than just a small town, The Silver Case again follows two characters, a nameable silent protagonist, and a reporter, Tokyo Morishima. The game begins with Tetsugoro Kusabi, special agent for the Heinous Crimes Unit, on his way home when a man walks into the middle of the road, forcing Tetsugoro to stop his car. The man is seen holding a severed head and shoots at Tetsugoro before running off. He calls into the station to let others know, and we're introduced to our silent protagonist. Now, you're allowed to name the silent character, but I see Akira most often as the canon name, so I'll just stick to that for now. Akira and his task force track down the culprit, and while investigating the building, they come across a scared lady that can't stop rambling. Leaving her, Akira reaches the roof where he confronts the man with the severed head. Unable to shoot, Tetsugoro comes in and shoots the man. He berates Akira for not being able to pull the trigger. They're interrupted by several shots, all aimed at the man with the severed head. Turning to see the lady from previously, Tetsugoro kills her as well, ending the prologue. It's actually revealed in a prologue manga who the criminals are. The two killed in this chapter are actually Ryo-Kazan and Rumi Toba from Moonlight Syndrome. And the severed head he carried around is supposedly Kyoko's head. It's been a couple years. How he kept that head looking as good as it did is a mystery. Or maybe he just kept killing women that looked like his sister and severing their heads like the crazy person he is. Anyways, the next case involves the person responsible for the game's title, Kamui Uehara, who was said to be an assassin with silver eyes that perpetrated a string of murders across several years, all during the middle of the winter. The incident became known as the Silver Case, and Tetsugoro was actually the one to arrest him. Kamui has seemingly escaped from his prison and has started committing crimes once again. Akira is transferred to the Heinous Crimes Unit, or HCU, after an incident left the rest of his unit injured or killed. Working mainly under Tetsugoro and his partner Sumio Kodai, they're tasked with finding Kamui. Searching previous people who had contact with Kamui, including a college acquaintance, the HCU finds projects from his days in college, one of them being a project about killing the past. His partner for that project was a lady named Ayame, and they pay her a visit. There, they find Kamui tied up in a closet and learn that Ayame was actually the one that freed Kamui and was perpetrating the crimes since Kamui had been in a vegetable-light state after his arrest years ago. The second playable character, Tokyo, is introduced in this chapter, and his set of chapters are reports called Placebo. Their subjects revolve around Akira's transmitter cases, give more insight into those cases, and are supposed to be played alongside them. Tokyo goes through his own character arc that becomes relevant to the story as a whole. The next couple cases mostly add character growth and arcs for the characters involved with small connections to the silver case. Things start leading back to the silver case when two people who hung around a particular internet forum start to idolize Kamui and Ayame and attempt to imitate them. While investigating, the HCU discovers the truth about a place known as the Shelter and those around him. Kamui was actually an assassin that was used by the government, and the Shelter was an attempt to make more people like him, as he was an extremely obedient person. They would take children from the 24th Ward, brainwashing them to be obedient to the government or even carry out an assassination. The project was headed by Mayor Hachisuka and an architect that oversaw the development of the entire city. However, their attempts to control people didn't go exactly as planned. Kamui has the power to channel himself into another person if they have enough criminal power, becoming a new Kamui. And the Shelter Kids became the perfect vessels for Kamui. As the events of the game come to a climax, Akira and Tokyo must confront the fact that they were raised in the shelter and thus primed for becoming Kamui. In the final chapter, Tetsugoro invites Akira and tells him the truth about the silver case, and I'll just leave it at that for now. The silver case is the first game where Kill the Past is the main theme, or even a theme at all. It's even used in-game by Kamui. It brings back imagery from Moonlight Syndrome, like the severed heads, shots of the moon at the end of each chapter, and people committing crimes because of a particular reason. A good amount of characters must confront their past in some way, not just the two main characters. It also cements the fact that death happens often in the Kill the Past series, and they're usually not meaningful deaths. Such as the case with Ryo and Rumi, who couldn't move past the events of their game and were gunned down like crazy criminals. The next game in the Kill the Past series is Flower, Sun, and Rain. Released in Japan for the PS2 on May 2nd, 2001, it was re-released in North America for the Nintendo DS on June 16th, 2009. It's the second game from Grasshopper Manufacturer, but the third game of the Kill the Past series to come to America. The game begins with the main character Sumio Mondo introducing himself and his car as he drives through Losspass Island, not to be confused with Sumio Toba and Sumio Kodai, sort of. We'll get to that in a bit. Sumio is a searcher, someone who finds things for other people. He explains that he was called to Losspass Island and Hotel Flower, Sun, and Rain for a job. Arriving at the parking lot, he meets Peter, a man with a silver eye and broker who was hired to take Sumio to the hotel. At the hotel, he meets with manager Edo McAllister. Edo is the one who hired Sumio and explains that time is repeating on the island. A terrorist is targeting the island by planting a bomb on an airplane leaving the island's airport. Sumio's job is to search for that bomb. He's shown to his room, where he rests until the next morning. As he awakens, he finds his room has been transformed and locked. Investigating the room, he finds a peephole, and on the other side is an employee of the hotel and a spirit medium. After searching through the room, Sumio is eventually able to unlock it. Having helped Sumio, the spirit medium sets out to leave the island when an airplane explodes over Lost Pass. Sumio wakes up to a call from Edo informing him that breakfast is ready. Confused about the events of the previous day, Sumio concludes that yesterday's events were a dream. As he's leaving the main lobby, Sumio gets another call from the front desk to help another person. This continues for a while. At a point in the game, the employee from the first day sends Sumio to the lighthouse. When reaching the top floor, he's killed by the terrorist known as Sundance Shot. The next day, 2 federal agents arrive to investigate his murder. They find a hidden cloning facility underneath the island. Toriko Kusabi, the daughter of Tetsugoro Kusabi, is introduced at this point. She confronts Sundance to avenge the losspass's savior. Sumio, seemingly revived, runs into Tokyo, the reporter from the Silver Case, who explains to Sumio that he created the time loop. Tokyo and Edo reveal the truth about the Silver Eyes and Lost Pass. Lost Pass Island is an artificial island that was colonized as a breeding ground for specific species of hyena, whose silver eyes, when placed into the socket of a human, would grant immortality. Edo was going to destroy Lost Pass Island with a bomb. However, Sundance found out about the bomb and stole it to stop the destruction of the island. Tokyo ends the time loop as Sumio heads to the airport where he faces off with Sundance Shot. Sundance reveals that both him and Sumio are actually genome clones of Sumio Kodai. While on the island, each day a new Sumio would be put on the island, having inherited the previous Sumio's memories. Sundance reveals that he's also a member of the Sundance tribe, the ones who originally inhabited the island. He's also implied to be the latest incarnation of Komoe Uehara. Sumio accepts all of his past clones' memories and disarms the bomb. As he leaves the island, he once again meets with Peter, who reveals himself to actually be his former partner, Tetsugoro Kusabi. Now, I would hesitate to call Flower, Sun, and Rain a sequel to The Silver Case, but it is in a way. While the story eventually becomes more focused on the Silver Eyes and hints at Komoe, the lead-up is a lot more personal as Sumio is making an impact on the people around him. It doesn't have the same protagonist as the Silver Case. Likewise, the conflict that Sumio needs to resolve isn't a continuation of the previous game. He has to accept the fact that he's a clone and those past memories. If he hadn't been able to do that and move forward, then he would not have been able to leave the island and Sundance Sumio would have won. But yeah, Flower, Sun, and Rain is a sequel to The Silver Case. It just doesn't show those connections until later on, unlike the 25th Ward, which is a much more direct sequel to Flower, Sun, and Rain and The Silver Case. Released originally as a mobile-only game, the 25th Ward came out on October 3rd, 2005. It was re-released worldwide on multiple platforms on March 13th, 2018. It makes its connections to the two previous games pretty clear immediately. Similar in playstyle to the Silver Case, you take control of 3 groups of main characters this time. Like the Silver Case, each set of cases all happen around the same time to one another, even if the stories diverge at some point. Correctness, where you take control of a couple characters who are part of the HCU of the 25th Ward, a supposed utopian metropolis and successor to the 24th Ward. One of the characters, Mokutaro Shiroyabu, obtains the Observer power and confronts a serial killer named Kurumizawa. He learns that Kurumizawa is just a sort of messenger to Komoe. Shiroyabu remembers his life in the 24th Ward, and as he relives and accepts those memories, he gains an existential awareness of Komoe. Placebo follows Tokyo Morishima, the reporter from the Silver Case, on a boat on a bay connecting the 25th Ward. Tokyo has been tasked with learning and reporting on the going-ons in the 25th Ward. He's lost his memory and can only remember certain things very vaguely. As he investigates, he meets people who came from the 24th Ward shelters. He learns that his memories were actually sealed by himself in order to halt the process of becoming a new Komoe. Tokyo must fight back against a hacker who's trying to control him and accept his past, even if it means becoming Komoe. Matchmaker follows Shinkai Tsuki, who works for the Regional Adjustment Bureau, and starts with the same case as in Correctness. Only this time the character you play as is part of the RAB, attempting to find out why those deaths happen. Tsuki runs into his former colleagues and teacher. Now hostile towards him, he must face his past in a very real sense. This one has a lot more things going on in the individual level because the game has 3 sets of people to follow. And to me personally, the most interesting one is the Matchmaker storyline. Here's where things start getting weird, or weirder. The past 4 games I've talked about have been continuations of some sort. They exist within one world and timeline, with each game set further into the future. The next game in the series, Killer 7, is the game that put Suda on most people's radar in the West. It was released on GameCube and PlayStation 2 in mid-2005. It was a big change in many ways. It's an entirely different genre, being the first game in the series that has playable action. The other gameplay elements make Killer 7 hard to fit neatly into just a couple categories. It doesn't have connections to the past games like Silver Eyes or Komoe, although it does have at least one cameo by a previous character. When I say that Killer 7 doesn't have connections to the previous game, I mean its current version. You see, during its production, it was originally going to have way more in common with the silver case. But Suda ended up removing a lot of those elements and revised its plot as he thought people in the West wouldn't understand where a lot of the story or characters came from, seeing as the only game released outside of Japan at the time was Flower, Sun, and Rain. It's also Suda's most dense game narrative-wise, with around 3 or 4 plots happening through the game all intertwined in some way. How does it end up so confusing? Well, the game starts with Garcia and Smith being informed that 14 Heaven Smiles are using the building as a base. The Heaven Smiles are a terrorist group of monsters invisible to most people that have been attacking the world. The Killer 7, who seem to be the only ones able to see them clearly, have been sent in to deal with them by locating and eliminating their boss. When inside the building, Garcian transforms into a different person, Dan Smith. Garcian has the ability to transform into another person, not just mentally but physically as well. He can become people that he's assassinated, but only if they meet the requirements. Garcian and 6 other personas are known as the Killer 7. The Smiths climb up the building fighting Heaven Smiles, seeing those killed by the Heaven Smiles, and talking to Remnant Psychs. Remnant Psychs are the remnants of those the Killer 7 have killed, but were unable to turn into a new persona. They have their own will and talk to the Killer 7 and even give them advice. Like Travis Bell, who's the second Remnant Psych they meet and bears some resemblance to Travis Touchdown. Reaching the highest floor, Garcian transforms into Harmon Smith, who is said to be the true mastermind behind the Killer 7. Harmon meets an angel that berates the Smiths for killing the Heaven Smiles. Harmon defeats her and she flees to the next room, where Harmon shoots a specter-like figure that appears next to her. This exposes her as actually being Kun Lan, the source of the Heaven Smiles and Harmon's longtime enemy. Despite this, Harmon speaks fondly of Kun Lan, even calling him a good friend. Skipping a little towards the future, the Japanese United Nations Party are trying to unify the world under their control. In response to this, the US sends the Killer 7 to assassinate those working with the UNP and to retrieve the Yakumo Cabinet policy. As the game goes on and the Killer 7 take on more requests by the US, more of the world government's plots are revealed and quite a few characters are shown to be hiding secrets about Garcian's past. One of the last couple missions takes the Killer 7 to Coburn Elementary. The school was originally created by an unknown underground capitalist group who wished to spread and cultivate capitalism through its education. At some point, Coburn was taken over by Japan, and specifically the UNP, to train young children to be brainwashed assassins for Japan. The Killer 7 discovered that a young boy named Amir Parkrainer stood out from the rest, and even came to be mentored by Harmon, who was the principal at the time. Other clues they find point to the Union Hotel and the massacre that occurred there. Heading to the Union Hotel, Garcian discovers that all of the Killer 7 were actually victims of the massacre there. They were murdered by Amir Parkrainer, who was the original persona of Garcian Smith. Killing everyone, Amir had gone to the roof and attempted suicide. Surviving because he fused with an entity also known as Harmon, the fusion opened his third eye and absorbed those he killed in the hotel and his old mentor. Harmon Smith became the dominant persona and became the head of the Killer 7. Realizing the truth, Garcian lets go of his persona and once again becomes Amir. Amir, now free from Harmon's influence, chases the last Heaven Smile, who looks like a remnant psych that teaches you about the game. Catching him and taking off his mask reveals that it looks like Kun Lan. Killing it, Amir becomes truly free from the influences of the past. Amir/Garcian faces a lot of obstacles before he can even attempt to face his past, since there's characters trying to prevent him from remembering for their own gain. The only reference I can think of to the past games of the series is Edo McAllister. The moon makes a return as part of the loading screen between levels. If it serves the same purpose as in Moonlight Syndrome, then the fact that it's a full moon that's always shown means that the Smiths live in constant madness. In fact, it might be part of the reason that Garcian is able to switch between the Smiths. Garcian uses the medium of television to awaken or change between the different Smith personas and to level them up. This kind of explains something that happens in Moonlight Syndrome that's similar. At the end of the game, we see Mika in the television, seemingly trapped, as Ryo's in a trance, staring at the TV. Ryo could possibly be using a similar power to Garcian to continue being with Mika. Alright, that's enough speculation for now, or we'll be here all day. Another breakout game for Suda and next in the series is No More Heroes. The Wii version of the game was originally released on December 6th, 2007, with the North American release being on January 22nd, 2008. And the PS3 and Xbox 360 version were released in Japan on April 15th, 2010. But, strangely enough, only the PS3 version of the game was released in North America on August 16th, 2011. No More Heroes is about an otaku named Travis Touchdown, living in the No More Heroes motel in the city of Santa Destroy with his cat, who's named Jean after his ex-girlfriend. Travis's motel room is filled with professional wrestling and anime collectibles. After running out of money for video games and wrestling videos, Travis accepts a job to assassinate a drifter and assassin named Helter Skelter. Armed with a beam katana that he won from an online auction, Travis kills his target and is congratulated by a lady he met the night before and the one who gave him the job. Sylvia Crystal tells Travis that he is now ranked number 11 on the United Assassination Association, or the UAA for short. Now, Travis is aiming to become the number 1 assassin. He fights his way up the UAA ladder against death metal.
Dr. Peace, listen to my song.
What's that in your hand? A toy?
Who he doesn't actually kill, but tells her instead to get stronger.
Destroy man. Come and get some. Holy summers.
Still just a bite.
Let's take.
Who's actually killed by Henry Cooldown, a mysterious man who also wields a beam katana.
Let's see what you're made of, country boy.
Speedbuster.
Fuck you, you little prick.
An older lady and is the first woman that Travis actually kills.
You think you're sad, don't ya?
And number 1.
Dark Star.
Welcome to my castle.
Before meeting the top-ranked assassin, Sylvia goes missing. Trying to figure out what's happened, Travis calls the number he believes is the UAA hotline, and discovers that it's actually the number to Sylvia's mother. She tells Travis that Sylvia is a con artist. The UAA doesn't actually exist, and she set up all the fights. Travis remembers part of the night he met Sylvia. She had overheard Travis's drunken ramblings of cursing somebody who took everything from Travis, and she organized the UA fights so that Travis could get even with that person. Meeting Darkstar, he tells Travis that he is Travis's father, and to remember the one he wanted to get revenge on. And before the fight can begin, Darkstar is killed by a lady. The lady introduces herself as Jean. She reveals that she's actually Travis's half-sister. Jean is the one who killed Travis's parents. Her reason for doing so is because Travis's dad left Jean's mom, who committed suicide afterwards. Jean lived in terrible conditions in an apartment completely separate from Travis. While living there, she was molested by Travis's father and was his slave. She cursed him and decided to become a killer, but didn't have money, so she paid with her body. When the time came, she killed Travis's parents in front of him and left him. Remembering that Jean is the one he wanted to get revenge on, he kills her. After saying a few departing words for his sister, he heads home. While in the restroom, Travis is ambushed by a man that looks suspiciously like Garcian Smith. Before he can be killed, the intruder is killed by Henry, who challenges Travis to a fight. In the parking lot of his motel, Travis and Henry fight, where Henry reveals that he's actually Travis's twin brother, and that Sylvia is actually his wife. The game ends as they face off against each other, trying to find the exit to paradise. No More Heroes is about Travis remembering the reason for joining the UAA, or rather going along with Sylvia's plan, and obtaining the conviction needed to face his past, with Jean being a very physical representation of it. It also shows the cycle of violence caused by vengeance. Jean killed Travis's parents because of what his father did to her, facing her own past. However, this is what sent Travis on his path. Even if he doesn't realize it at first, Travis is actively attempting to move forward to face his past, while Jean is the one that has her past come back to haunt her. Unfortunately, only one of them is able to move on from the encounter. Stuff like the moon shows up only at the very beginning of the game, in the cutscene with Helter Skelter, and like Killer 7, No More Heroes has a big focus on assassins. The world of No More Heroes doesn't really show any relation to the previous games in the Kill the Past series, but there are references that suggest a connection. The assassin at the end of the game resembles Garcian Smith, and even sounds similar, although it's never confirmed to be him. Promotional imagery for No More Heroes has Sylvia in a bikini that says Flower, Sun, and Rain, with the losspass airplane flying overhead. There's also other references to the Killer 7, and especially Mask the Smith. Now, I'm going to go through the next couple games quickly because this video is long enough already. No More Heroes 2 begins with Travis being challenged by a man named Skelter Helter, the younger brother of Helter Skelter, who wants revenge for killing his brother. Killing Skelter Helter, he gives Travis a message that his friends won't be safe, and the next day he's sent the severed head of his friend Bishop. The final boss in this game also wants revenge on Travis for killing his family in No More Heroes. Essentially, Travis has to kill the past again because of his actions in the previous game. What seemed like non-important issues has turned into a cycle of vengeance. Travis has to face his past directly if he doesn't want to end up dead. And because Travis can't have a nice life, the new game Travis Strikes Again is about Bat Dad, who's Batgirl's father, coming to kill Travis. While fighting, they're sucked into the Death Drive 2000 and have to find a way out. So once again, something from his past came back to bite him. Now, No More Heroes 2 is actually directed by Nobutaka Ichika, and Suda was just a producer on the project. But Travis Strikes Again is being directed by Suda51. The sequels to No More Heroes do have a lot in common with Kill the Past as well. No More Heroes 2 even brings back some imagery that wasn't present in No More Heroes. And Killer is Dead is a game that the story's themes share a lot in common with Kill the Past, but isn't considered to be part of it because Suda himself didn't direct it, he only wrote the story for it. Nearly everything thematically makes a return, and it actually has really strong similarities to the Silver Case. Like the main character, named Mondo Zappa, looking a little like Sumio. There's also the fact that in Flower, Sun, and Rain, Sumio was called Sumio Mondo. It's a bit of a stretch, but the names could be a connection. Dark matter is something that comes directly from the moon in Killer is Dead, and if enough of it infects a person, they'll transform into wires who only want destruction. The moon takes a more active role in this game, and the dark matter changing people could be a parallel to how the moon represented people's sanity, and how a full moon signifies insanity. And lastly, Mondo does have to face things from his past that have been hidden away. While not a traditional series, Kill the Past still has those connections there, mostly on the thematic side. From Moonlight Syndrome to the 25th Ward, it's all in a connected world in a continued timeline. Killer 7 and No More Heroes don't exactly fit or are somewhat contradictory. Still, there's enough cameos or information there that someone could possibly find a way to connect them. And on the individual level, the games are strong enough to stand on their own. Heck, the one game that assumes you've played the previous games is the 25th Ward. Aside from the main theme, each game in the series will have some combination of themes and imagery that relate to each other. Assassins being the one that are in nearly every single game. I don't know if it's ever stated in an interview, but I think the reason that Suda51 likes using assassins as a driving force in his games is because they're cool. And because the nature of their jobs tends to have strong impacts on the society around them. Aside from that, as I said at the beginning of the video, there's always more to dive into when it comes to Suda's games. Even without getting into theories or symbolism, these games can be pretty dense, and the summaries I gave are kind of bare bones. Taking Killer 7 as an example, I didn't even talk about the rest of the Killer 7, the political plots, or even the plans of the two godlike beings. Okay, maybe Killer 7 wasn't the best example considering there's also supplementary information in hand in Killer 7, which answers some questions but contradicts other information. Even No More Heroes, a more straightforward game, has more going on when you look beneath the surface. Honestly, that's part of the reason why I find Suda51's games so fun. I love that there's so many different ways to look at and interpret his games. I think it's really cool that even individually, these games might offer people a unique perspective on the same game. And Kill the Past is just one viewpoint to look through when it comes to Suda51's games. So, yeah, hopefully this gave you a bit of an idea on what is the Kill the Past series. I want to give a quick update on what I'll be doing next, and I want to apologize because it took so long to get this video out. So, sorry for that. I don't think I'll be tackling a long video like this again for a while. The next couple videos are going to be reviews continuing down the DMC series. Constructive criticism is always welcome. And like always, I want to leave you guys with the question. Do you find games with a straightforward story more enjoyable, or ones that allow for multiple interpretations? Let me know in the comments. Alright, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you later.